I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
You're listening to the winning literary show, Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio, live with host Denise Turney, author of the books Long Walk Up, Portia, Love Pour Over Me, Spiral, Love Has Many Faces, and Rosetta's Great Hope. Turn up your dial and get ready for a blast of feature author interviews, 411 on book festivals, writing conferences, and so much more. Ready? Let's go.
Good morning, and welcome to Off the Shelf Books for this Saturday, July 26, 2025. This is the last Saturday in July. I tell people that this month went so fast, it doesn't even feel like a full month. I don't know what it is about summer. I guess we fill our lives up with a lot of things, and it goes so fast. Before we kick into the show, I want to start with a quote, as I generally do. And I know some of you may love these quotes. This one is by Isabel LaFleche. Your passion is waiting for your courage to catch up. Your passion is waiting for your courage to catch up. And now, instead of, I normally will tell you about one of my books and then introduce our guest, but I want to get in quickly to letting you meet today's guest. So instead of going in briefly about one of my books, I do encourage you to visit me online at Chistel, CHISTELL.com. You can read free excerpts from my books. You can actually even catch the Off the Shelf Books platform through my books. Sign up for the Book Lovers Haven, my literary newsletter, which comes out monthly and is completely and absolutely free. Again, that's Chistel, CHISTELL.com. I hope you hop over there and enjoy your visit. And now let us go and meet today's Off the Shelf guest. And this morning's guest is Dr. Bruce Farmer. He is an avid outdoorsman. He has explored many lands, traveling domestically and abroad, and his careers have led him to healthcare and education. His outdoor career, travel, and outdoor experiences influence his writings, including his latest book, Blood Sapphire's Revenge. He is a devoted father and grandfather, and Bruce invites you to explore his writings at drbrucefarmer.com, and that's spelled DRBRUCEFARMER.com. And one more time, DRBRUCEFARMER.com. Please stop over and visit his website even now while you enjoy listening to today's show. We're so honored to have Dr. Bruce Farmer with us this morning. Welcome, Dr. Bruce Farmer.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
So, to kick off today's show, can you please tell Off the Shelf Books listeners where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up?
Well, Denise, I was born in 1952, so I'm a boomer, single child, parents military, so I'm a Army brat. Dad was a veterinarian and a nuclear researcher, and the Army basically put him on Area 51, and he worked on the atomic bomb. And so that upbringing took us all over the planet with lots of adventure right there. And we settled in Beaverton, Oregon. And so I could go to high school, the same high school. And I felt a call to medicine, and I went to Portland State University and then graduated as a doctor of medicine from Oregon Health Sciences University in 1983, and went into trauma surgery and burns. Ultimately, I practiced emergency medicine in rural Oregon, and then felt a call to go into seminary, and not to be a pastor, but to explore a philosophical issue of determinism or sovereignty and free will. Ultimately, I taught at Life Pacific University in San Dimas, California, and then suffered a severe back injury, and was got an operation and rehabbed, and that led me in to develop my own company called Fitness um, Therapeutics on rehabbing bad backs. And ultimately, I'll say that in the year 2000, when I went to seminary, I had a bit of a vision. I was reading the book of Esther. Now, this is what, 25 years ago. And I was suddenly captured by this story of this Persian queen, 5th century Persian queen, who is an orphan and no one knows her identity. And she's, in essence, the most powerful woman in the world, but no one knows she's Jewish. She's incognito. And as the story goes, there's an evil guy named Haman who comes to destroy the Jews. And ultimately, it's Queen Esther who is challenged by her uncle, Mordecai, and says, Esther, you need to talk to the king. And she says, if I go in unannounced and he doesn't approve of that, I'm dead. I'm a dead woman. And Mordecai says, maybe for such a time as this, you were born. And that has captured my imagination pretty much since then. That I have this sense for myself and for everyone that I meet, people wherever, that we all have a call of destiny on our lives. And that when we're wondering what in the world is going on, we can ask ourselves the question, maybe for this moment I was born, I need to step up and fulfill my destiny. Well, I had this vision. What would it be like to take this Queen Esther, bring her into our century, the 20th century, 21st century, and make her a spec ops elite sniper in the Israeli Defense Force? Yeah. And then I wondered, what would it be like if I put her, this sniper named Hattie Abrams, in the same predicament where Jerusalem is about to be annihilated by a madman with nuclear tipped rockets, and she is beaten and forlorn. There's been a lot of stuff going on in her life, and she gets this call from a Mossad, the director of Mossad, who says, "You know, we are looking for this guy named X, and he's going to destroy Jerusalem." She says, "That's great. Why are you talking to me? Because everywhere you show up, he's at your heels trying to kill you. He's got some grudge against you. And so the next time he shows up, we're going to be there." And she says, "You mean I'm the goat?" And he says to Hattie, "Maybe you were born for this moment. Maybe this is your time to step up and do the right thing." And without giving too much away, that's what happens. She goes head to head. She finds this guy, and with her love, Wolf James, New York city detective, and it goes right down to the wire. There you go.
Now, I was going to ask you some other questions, but we can come back to. Well, actually, I do want to ask you this, and then we'll come back to the novel, because this might play into it. And you just explored some of what made your interest in. You wanted to study seminary and Esther, and how you came about that piqued your interest. When you just try going back a little, when you were a kid, I know your father was in the military, but what did you dream of being? Curious when you talk destiny and whatnot. When you were a kid,
Uh,
what did you dream of becoming? What did you want to be?
I don't recall having a lot of dreams about becoming anything. We were always moving every year, every 2 years, we were in a different place. And life was exciting. And all I can say is about the age of 12, 13, 14, I discovered that I had a natural interest in philosophy.
Hmm.
And I started engaging my dad in, I remember we had this big conversation on honesty. And I was saying, what is honesty? What is lying? And he said, well, there's cash register honesty. I said, what's that? He says, that's when someone looks at you and says, you're ugly. I went, oh. He says, but you can be a lot more polite and say, wow, I really like that hairstyle. You know, well, here I am at this early age talking through moral issues and philosophy. And that is what gripped me when I went into high school. I started reading existential literature and became fascinated with Friedrich Nietzsche, who thus spake Zarathustra, where the madman is running through the village at night and says, we have killed God. And Nietzsche was the one who said, God is dead. Now, the antagonist to Nietzsche was Soren Kierkegaard, Danish. And Kierkegaard was writing at the same time, and he said, he coined the phrase, the leap of faith. So in the kind of 1860s, we have these two giants of philosophy. One coins the phrase, God is dead. And now we all kind of think like God is dead. We hear that a lot. And we have Kierkegaard who talks about the leap of faith. And what he was talking about is you have to leap out of an airplane with no parachute. And you're saying, God is going to catch me or not. And I was fascinated with this stuff. This is so I suppose I was thinking about going to college and pursuing some kind of thing with philosophy. But at the same time, my dad was a veterinarian and a researcher and all of that. And so I was being pulled into to think about medicine as well. Just it was just fascinating.
Okay. What I wanted to ask you again before we get back to your book, what if you share like two things you learned about people while practicing medicine? Because you worked with people probably in very heightened emotional states. But what did you two things you learned about people while practicing medicine that helps you to create dynamic, intriguing, multi-dimensional characters?
Well, I have maybe one poignant memory. I was the resident of the burn unit at the Manual Hospital, level one trauma, and I'd been on the burn unit. I did 6 months as a resident there, which is long. And you see the most horrific injuries, and many of them are, well, I won't, anyway. I was taking a break and was sitting in the waiting room in my scrubs coming out of the burn unit. I was just felt so much grief and inexplicable pain over some of the things that were going on in the lives of these people when this man is sitting across from me and he's wailing and he's crying. And I'm sitting there going, what's going on? He says he had lost his entire family that day.
Mm.
His daughter, granddaughter, and mother were killed in an auto accident.
Mm.
And he was wailing. At that moment, I said to myself, I must read the book of Job, which is the supreme testament of suffering. I said, I became aware of suffering and pain is part of the human condition.
Mm.
We cannot escape it. And that's the existential dilemma, is we are faced with suffering and pain. And Job is a righteous man who suffers everything. And so it's this drama between him and God. How God, if you're a good God, how can you do this? And so it's anyway. So I suppose that memory comes to mind because in trauma, you see, you work with people in pain, and you become aware that that is the human condition. And
Mm.
I tended to approach it philosophically and theologically. And yeah, so I don't know about a second, you know, I, I think that's probably the, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I have a love for medicine.
Uh,
Loved what I did. And yeah.
Okay. Who or what inspired your love for writing novels? Where did that come from? Out of academia and Madison?
Well, when I got this vision back in 2000, it wasn't long before I was teaching at this college of undergrads. And I got into a really nice discussion with the director of arts, the art director at the college, who was connected with the Hollywood scene. And she listened to this story that I was spinning in my head about this woman, Queen Esther, transformed into this. And she looked at me and she said, if you can keep this and work it and develop it, and put it on paper and it becomes a film, I see this as a film. It will
Mm.
become a movie at some point. She said,
Hmm.
I know this. And so I was gripped with that and I began writing back then. But over the years, I would write for a while and then put it down, write for a while and put it down. And then in 2016, I I had some real business reversals, basically went bankrupt, and was faced with, wow, what direction is my life going in? What should I do next? And I ended up looking for counsel from a Jungian therapist, Carl Jung, psychotherapist, who trained in Zurich and was a senior counselor. And Martha Blake is phenomenal. So I had heard her name and Carl Jung, and I had this dream. I'd had this gripping dream. So I went to Martha and I said, I don't know where my life is going, but I have this dream. Now, when you tell a Jungian psychotherapist you have a dream, they get out their pencil and they get out their pad and they start scribbling and they look at you like with intense eyes and they say, tell me your dream. I said, well, I dreamt I was laying on my back um, under a mountain stream that was cascading down this mountain, a cold, clear mountain stream. And it was covered with ice. And I was trapped inside, trying to get out. But I looked like Robert Frost, the American poet. And the
Mm.
moon was coming up, and the edges of this around this water cascade were melting. So I
Ah.
stopped, and she looked at me, and she said, "For 50 years, you've been in medicine and science, and in Carl Jung's thinking, that means you've been living under the sun. The sun is
Ah.
productivity. That's you followed in your father's footsteps. You have lived under the sun. You've been a provider, da 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 da. But in the Jungian world, the moon represents art,
Ah.
music,
Hmm.
literature, the feminine. And she said, "Were you ever a poet?"
Hmm.
And I said, I went, well, when I was yeah, when I was in high school, yeah, I wrote. uh, She said, maybe there's a poet in you that's
Ah.
trying to get out, and the moon is coming up, and it's signaling, your subconscious is signaling you from beyond that you're going in a different direction. You are going into literature. She said, "Have you been
Interesting.
right?" She said, "Have you been writing anything?" I
Wow.
went, "Well, actually, yes." She said, "Well, next session, bring me the first chapter of your book. I want to listen to it." And
Hmm.
I ended up writing a lot of this book. And every time I get together, I'd read something and talk about my dreams to Martha. And she was such a brilliant, wise woman. We have people in our lives, not many, but we mark our lives by certain people that I call the wise woman. The woman who sits on the edge of our life, that we go to and say, "What's going on?" And
Hmm.
she speaks with wisdom from the moon. So that's what happened. I started writing.
Interesting.
Yeah, I started, and then as I wrote, every time I wrote, she said, "I see myself reading this book in the airport lounge. I also see this as a movie, and it's just so first
Interesting.
person in your face literature." And I went, "It's funny you say that. Every time I write it, I see I see this as a movie."
Hmm.
uh, I know this sounds crazy, but I see Hattie Abrams like Wonder Woman, like Gal Gadot. And
Okay.
so anyway, long story short, when I finished the book, it got into the hands of an award-winning screenwriter who has written this kind of a screenplay, and now is shopping the screenplay to producers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So anyway, maybe anyway.
I hope that I look up and I say, "Oh, Dr. Bruce, Farmer, I interviewed him on Off the Shelf," and then when I see, hopefully it on the big screen.
Yeah.
Now, can you introduce us? You told us earlier about the story and how it came back about from your reading and studies of Esther in the scriptures.
Yeah.
But can you introduce us to one of the main characters, Hattie Abrams? Can you share her family background? What's her personality like? How old is she, and what drives her?
Hattie Abrams is a woman faced with a terrible dilemma. On the At the moment she was born, her father was murdered,
Mm,
and her father is murdered by an enforcer of the Sakharov syndicate, an evil syndicate. So she doesn't know that. She just knows that when she was born, every time her birthday comes up, she's celebrating her birthday, but she's also aware that her father died. And this grips her so much. She learns Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's karate, martial art. She's expert in Krav Maga. She's very lithe, cheetah-like, and at the age of 14, she is involved in swimsuit modeling in Manhattan. She's a beautiful lady, and she goes against her mother's advice not to go to that party out in Southampton, and she does, and she's raped.
Oh.
So in that moment, she she has a close relationship to the God of Israel. She's very close. She's very Jewish. She's she's very Jewish, and she suddenly is faced with this terrible thing saying, what did I do to deserve this? And then she has this moment where she faces God and she says, you did this. You are responsible. And from this moment on, I kill you. So
Mm.
that's this dilemma in her. And then she decides to go into uh, the military. Her expertise at being a sniper is recognized. And so she finds herself on these as an elite spec ops sniper throughout the world. And finally, as the book opens, we are, meeting Hattie and her sidekick, Shira, who is the spotter, on a mission to kill an Al Qaeda terrorist. And there she is facing her 27th birthday, which is essentially, 2 weeks, 3 weeks away. And she has made up her mind she is going to kill herself.
Oh.
I hate life. It's meaningless. I hate it. And I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to face my father's death on my birthday. I'm killing. So, as the story goes, she prepares a place in the Benjamin Forest to kill herself at a pool and commit harikiri. And she has her tanto knife. And on this day, she's at this pool and she goes to slit her throat. Her thighs are tied together. She's at the pool. It's windy and stormy, and this pool is ringed with pine trees. And she goes to cut her throat when a tree cracks and splashes into the pool, and her knife pops out of her hand, and she falls over and she goes,
Ah.
what in the world was that? So she gets herself all together again, gets the knife, goes to cut her throat when there's this snap, a loud shot behind her. And she falls into the pool, breathing in water. She's, spluttering, angry, and fearful. She turns around to find out what's going on, and she's looking into the eyes of a 12-prong Persian fallow buck deer, a very rare kind of deer that is present in the Benjamin Forest, who's stock still across this little pond looking at her. And at that moment, she recognizes that this is an accident. And suddenly, this fearsome darkening comes over this pool, and she collapses onto her face, and this fearsome dread falls upon her, and she is looking at bottomless fear, and she knows. She says, what do you want? And this voice says, what do you want? And she goes, to know why you killed my father on my birthday. And she has this, suddenly sees herself standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, South Rim, looking a mile down at that river, and behind her is the burning sands. And to to go into the burning sands is to say, I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna pursue this. To jump is to leap. And the voice says, then leap. So she leaps out, wakes up 3 hours later, knowing that she's had this confrontation with this unseen, powerful voice. I never, I don't. Anyway, I leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my God. You
Basically,
stated it.
yeah.
You
She said,
said,
"I'm going to quit the army," and but she had met this jaw-dropping hunk of a guy while climbing Mount Rainier 9 years earlier, and their eyes connected while they were going past each other in the snow, and they both knew at that moment they were meant for each other. But they don't stop. They're part of a group, and they go past each other going, wait, what am I doing? I need to turn around. And the guy is going, it turns out to be Wolf James, who is a ranger, a master sergeant, in the Rangers, who's going to retire. And he looks at her and he goes, I know that's the woman for me. But he
wow.
doesn't stop. Well, here she is on this pond. She's fallen over. She says, I'm going to quit the army, and can you find me a man like that with amber eyes? A man who will love me. Well, as it turns out, that day, because it was early morning when this happens, it turns out that she goes back to her barracks, and she ends up going out that night with this hunky squeeze of a first sergeant, um, and into this bistro enters a young boy who is strapped with dynamite and explosives. He opens up his coat and shouts Allahu Akbar and pulls the cord, and Hattie is flung across the room into a brick wall. And now she's going to wake up in the ICU, terribly burned, terribly, her face has been blown, shredded. And she says, I gave you my life, and this is what I get. So now she is she's fearful. She doesn't know what's going on. And as it turns out, she will recognize that someone is trying to kill her. And she
Mm.
will run and flee and have this conversation with, I don't bring this out a lot, but she's struggling with what happened. And as she struggles to escape and find, she doesn't realize she's being pushed ever closer, where she will meet Wolf James, and the two of them will end up facing off X.
I was going to ask you how and why did Hattie and Detective Wolf James pass cross, but you just answered that question for us. But what is Detective Wolf James doing in Ukraine, being that he's a New York City detective?
Well, it's funny because he too, he goes in to become a New York City detective because his family was burned alive when he was a boy, and he knows that there's a malign presence that did it. So he is devoted to finding his family's killers. He learns that actually the guy in charge of this whole thing is this Sakharov syndicate who is headquartered in Odessa, Ukraine. And so Wolf ends up being assigned by Captain Greening of the Ninth Precinct to go to Odessa on this mission for the Ninth Precinct. The captain doesn't understand all of this stuff. And Hattie is also in Southampton at her grandfather's place. And that's when she gets the call from the director of the Mossad, who says, "You are going to Odessa because we know X can be traced there. We don't know if he's there, but that's where you're going." So that chapter where these two meet is one of my most favorite chapters because they've been looking for each other for 9 years. And they both
Wow.
considered each other dead. She doesn't know he even exists, and he has written her off. And she gets off the plane as this gorgeous spec ops gal, and he's coming out the gate he's been told he has to meet this Israeli person who's going to help in this finding X. He doesn't know what he's doing there. Why is he there picking up this girl? And of course, they
Interesting.
yeah.
Yes. Are there real life events in the book Blood Sapphire's Revenge? And if
Are there
so, why
what?
did you choose that approach?
Are there what?
Real life events in the story, events that actually historically
Well,
occurred that you put in the story.
the book is really super accurate as to detail. I mean, when Hattie picks up the Macmillan, 50 caliber TAC 1 sniper rifle, the reader ends up learning about the rifle. It's a 30-pound cannon that's 6 feet long, and it shoots a 2.5 inch, bullet. I mean, you're right there. Um, it People have asked me though, because I got this vision back in 2000, and I started writing it in 2016, and they read it and they go, "This is crazy. X is an oligarch, a Ukrainian oligarch who's friends with Vladimir Putin, and the two of them are in cahoots." And it turns out that Hattie and Wolf they were both born in Odessa. And so people look at this and go, "You had no idea about the Russians invading Ukraine, about current events?" And I said, I didn't. And when I asked Martha Blake that, she said many times writers, artists, the subconscious is connected to events that are unfolding that we're not aware of. And you were connected to what was going to happen. And that fueled some of the angst in writing this. And I went, "Oh, well, that's interesting." So, yeah, you've got, uh, so you are very much in all the details of Southampton and New York and all the street names and all the apartments, and all of that is down to the wire detail. If you go to the apartment building where Wolf James is hiding out to capture this drug lord, you'll find it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you describe this for our listeners as a fast paced novel or more of a psychological thriller?
Well, it's it it somewhat defies description. It's a very fast paced, can't put down Turner. So my rule of thumb in writing is you must give the reader a reason to turn the page. So at the end of every page, I'm asking, okay, they have to turn the page. What is it that's going to make them turn the page? So many people pick up the book and can't put it down.
Very good.
but it is character driven.
Okay.
I'm very much into the psychological makeup of every character, the psychopathy of the enforcer, Ivan Jurek, the schizoid personality disorder of X, who has a photographic memory, who remembers every detail of his life, who is a Jew but hates his race and wants to destroy them, which is, we have historical examples of that. Um, and one of the chief henchmen of Stalin, Kaganovich, was a Jew who helped murder millions of his fellow Jews. And
Mm.
so X has examples. You can read about Kaganovich. So these are all. So X is he's a genius, a photographic memory, but he is a schizoid. He's one weird dude. So, and then the enforcer, Ivan Jurek, is is truly a psychopath. Now,
Mm.
also we have part of the ex household is his personal assistant, Fusako Kitashirakawa, who is a beautiful Japanese. As it turns out, she's a yakuza um, member of the yakuza, and she is there to assist X, but actually her grandfather has sent her on a mission to ultimately kill him. So
Wow.
she's an assassin, and she has her own manic depressive weirdness. And since I practice medicine, I love getting into the psychology that drives people to do what they do.
Mm.
So a lot of times my characters are speaking inside themselves. So Hattie might be saying, I'm here to kill Anashir Salam with the sniper rifle. But inside, she's going, what would mother think of me?
Yeah.
Would her
Yeah.
tears make me change my mind?
Yeah.
So, because it's easy to point a gun at someone and say, he pulled a trigger and she died. And we all go, so what? But if you're inside the character and you're into their past and what's going on, the reader has a chance to get inside and ask questions of themselves. So they get pulled into the drama.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, have you traveled? Have you actually traveled to Ukraine and or New York City to really, like you said, if you went to one of the areas, you would actually see
Yeah,
that
I
apartment or
I
building?
I actually one time when I was in I lived on Staten Island for a while, and then I've been in Manhattan 3 times and walked the city streets, and then I was out at Southampton, and I was basically um, gained entrance into a Southampton mansion and studied the architecture and the landscaping. So when you're in the house of Hattie's grandfather, David Abrams, who's an art gallery guy, the house, if you've been to that New York subway tile kind of architecture, you'll recognize, wow, that sounds like one of these houses. And the privet hedges that are, 12 feet tall, and the oyster crushed gravel driveways, and the Agawam Lake. All of these things are because I was there. Um, I had a ticket on Ukrainian Air, the airlines, to go to Odessa. I purchased the ticket and COVID hit.
Ah.
I never got my money back because Ukrainian International Airway nearly went bankrupt.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I was close to, and the reason I came up with Odessa goes way back when I was reading Innocents Abroad by Mark Twain, a book that I've read about 3 times. And I love Innocents Abroad, where they are getting off their steamship, the first steamship, luxury ship to go around the world. That was like 18, I don't know, 70, 72 or somewhere in there. And they get off and go up to Odessa. And Odessa was a pretty fresh town back then. And Mark Twain describes Odessa as the streets and the dust and looking westward. And he said, "This is the West." There was something about it that captured my imagination about Odessa being the frontier, like the western frontier of the U.S., the frontier of this new land. And it captured me, and I never forgot that. So I went back to Odessa.
Wow, how interesting. How long did it take you to write Blood Sapphire's Revenge? The ideal came to you in 2000. You started on it in 2016, which is pretty impressive, that 16-year gap. How long did it take you to finish the novel?
I'd say 5 years.
Oh,
5
okay.
years, and now it's in the hands of Nick Potter, who is this this amazing screenwriter, and so we're he's pulling all the levers and doing all the things that you do to. He doesn't see when he first read the book, um, and if you know that world, he didn't read the book. You know you have to pay the screenwriter a considerable sum of money to read your book because at his level, he said, "I'm not going to read your book unless you pay me."
Mm.
And I went, "Okay." And then he said, "That entitles you to 1 hour, a 1 hour interview after I've read it. And I'll let you know whether we should proceed or not." And so I was on pins and needles waiting for this call. And finally, it came 2 months later. And he got on the phone and he said, "I love this book." He said, "It's not going to be a movie. You have 5 years of material here for a TV series."
Ah,
And that's what
okay.
he's doing.
Okay. Was there
Right.
ever a time when you struggled to continue developing a story? You were in psychotherapy, you read a chapter to your therapist, Martha, and get, I'm sure she gave you feedback, particularly more on what might be going on with you unconsciously. But was there ever a time when you struggled to continue to develop writing a story? And if so, how did you move through that challenge? And I ask you that for our listeners who might be writers themselves, who might get to a part in a story where they just struggle to continue.
Well, I often think in terms of pictures. And so my response is taken from a mind picture that comes to mind about my writing style and my struggles. I've had the opportunity to raft the Deschutes River in Oregon more times than I can count over many years. And the river, it's a 3 day float with some huge rapids, and it's very exciting and it's quite an adventure. And riding to me is a little bit like hitting White Horse Rapids or whatever, where you're just holding on for dear life, and the riding comes and it's just happening, it's flowing, and then you hit these spots of calm where it seems like the river is not moving at all. And you're sitting on the surface of the water going, "Are we even moving?" And but you know that you are. You know that you are. You can look over at the banks and see these little whirlpools, these little eddies forming. You can look at the surface of the water and see it boiling up from deep below. You know it's moving. And when I get to these spots where the book isn't happening, I basically rest in this raft of who myself or whatever, And I know that if I'm patient and I'm attending to what's going on, the rip we'll hit another rapid.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
kind of how I think about this.
Interesting.
You know that you have this gift. You know you've been called to do this. You trust to that call. Maybe for this moment you were born to write. So if you're a writer and you've had those rapid moments where it all just comes out, and then you hit those long patches of nothing's happening, I can't think of a thing, I don't know where to go, you you just trust to what's going on inside you.
Okay. What is the inspiration? And I'm listening to you as you talk about the story. Where did you get the book's title? What's the inspiration behind the title of the book?
Well, it comes from the moment when Hattie was born. Her mother, Sasha, is a seer. She has this gift of seeing the future. She can see into people. And we know people like that. People that we meet, that they kind of look at you and you have a sense that they're looking right through you. And Sasha has that gift. And she has very vivid dreams that are prophetic. They come true. Um, so when Hattie is being born, she has this dream of this bloody dagger
Mm.
that's encrusted with blood sapphire, the sapphire stone, the blood sapphire stone, which is kind of it's not ruby red, it's more pinkish. But she sees this dagger, the hilt is covered with blood sapphires, and it's bloody. And as Hattie's being born, ultimately, when Hattie's, she's older, she will tell her, I saw you being born, and I saw you killing the man who killed your father.
Wow.
Now, Hattie will reject that and say, and she says, and Hattie, you have my gift. And Hattie will say, I don't have your gift. I'm not going to kill him. I'm going to kill myself in 6 days. So there. As it turns out, it doesn't happen that way. But so that's where I just think,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. The more you share, the more intriguing Blood Sapphire's Revenge becomes. Can you share 3 steps you've taken, Bruce, that you personally have found to be effective at getting the word out about your book?
Well, if you're a self publisher, of which I am, um, it's it's a job.
Mhm.
I think the first thing is I have a web developer, a web designer who is an expert, and so the first thing for me was a web presence, and realizing that people really are not drawn to Blood Sapphire's Revenge. They're drawn to the author, Dr. Bruce Farmer. They want to
Mm.
know about you as a person. They want to get to know you, and then they go, okay, I think I'll try the book.
Mm.
So the first thing is a web presence that really, and this guy said, look, I want pictures of you. The book cover is a model that um, we found. My wife and I found this at the studio of a very famous photographer who does all the Nike photographs,
Mhm.
action swimmers, and everything. And he took us into his studio, which is this amazing place. And he brought forward all these albums of models. And we told him what we were looking for. We flipped through them again. And finally, we drilled down to this one person. This is ours. And then he made the call. She was available, and she came in. And so when you see the cover, she's holding the rifle. My son is a former military officer, and he came on set and dressed her, told her how to hold, the weapon, told her how the knife has to be, it got her all dressed up. And she would come around the corner or pose. And finally, I said, this, I don't think you're getting it. I want you to come around and realize I'm on the ground with a person with a gun, and I'm going to shoot you. You're going to be shot dead. So you got to come around ready to respond. You got to look intense.
Mm-hmm.
And she got it.
Mm.
And we captured that on pictures. So that's the picture, the photograph on the book. And then this web designer said, well, he took pictures of you. I want pictures. I went, okay. So anyway, that was a lot of the process. And then you find people who are marketers who understand marketing books. And the person who found you, a stress-free marketing out of Atlanta. I mean,
Okay.
he says, look, this is what I do. And so but you have to make the investment, you have to make the time, book clubs, signings. Um, Sometimes I'll give away the book, and you're always in the process of, unfortunately, it's self promotion, which gets really tiresome. And anyway, I had written this autobiography, and then Nick Potter came along, and he wanted to make a pitch deck, which is going to go before producers. They could kind of see the book, like um, see the book in slide picture formation. He says, and they're going to look at this. I want them to read about the author. I want an autobiographical note. Or I said, Nick, I've worked on that autobiography piece, and I'm sick of it. And he said, stop it. He said, stop it. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to step outside yourself, pretend you're someone else, and look at this character, and whatever, get angry, do whatever you need to do, but write about this person in a way where you're not that person. I went, oh. I sat down and just spilled it out. And I sent it to him. He says, that's fantastic.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a process.
Yes. Are you working on any new books, Bruce?
Well, I started Blood Sapphire's Revenge, and I'm about 12 to 15 chapters into it. And I suffered a big setback when my computer crashed. And
Oh.
although I back everything up, I hadn't backed up some of the files,
Oh.
which is terrible because you lose weeks of work.
Yeah.
So I've started, and I'm essentially on that pond in the Deschutes. My juices have just kind of, like, I'm just sitting there going, because Blood Sapphire's Revenge picks up from where Blood Sapphire's, excuse me, um,
The second book?
the second book picks up from the moment the first book ends. You're
Okay.
back at the castle, X's castle, the drama at the last moment. You start from there and begin the second book. And so it's so I've started but I've hit the calm waters.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you.
Okay. Where can off the shelf listeners get a copy of Blood Sapphire's
Well,
Revenge?
everything is on Amazon. I mean, you
Okay.
just go to Blood Sapphire's Revenge. It's in audio. I did the Audible, so you're listening to me, and you got the print and the Kindle and the hard and everything, and it's um, you know, it's priced the way my marketer said it should be priced. I didn't come up with these prices. He just says this is what this is, blah blah blah, and I went okay. So yeah, it's super easy to get a hold of.
Okay. Oh, we have had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Bruce Farmer. He's the author of Blood, Sapphire's Revenge. He's working on book 2 in the story. And so you can look forward to seeing that on the market one day in the future. His website is drbrucefarmer.com, DRBRUCEFARMER.com. And he's looking to get the Blood Saphire Revenge. Hopefully you'll see it either at a major motion film or a TV series. So thank you, Dr. Bruce Farmer, for being here with us and taking time out of your Saturday to be with us here on Off the Shelf Books. As I always tell our listeners, first of all, thank you for being here with us. And I encourage you to go out and support Dr. Bruce Farmer and get a copy of Blood, Sapphire's Revenge. And as I always tell you, you really are amazing. We forget that sometimes. You are incredible. Please go out and create a fabulous day for yourself. Dr. Bruce, I'll send you an email when the show finishes streaming. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.